Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to talk about Enhanced Pickleball's Gen 4.5. And yes, Gen 4.5 is its official name. There's so many paddles coming out these days, and as much as I'd like to cover all of them, it's just literally not possible. So really, I try to focus my efforts on paddles that either I really like a lot, I really dislike a lot, I think people really want to hear about, or I think people really need to hear about. And of course, if a paddle brings something special or unique to the market, that gets an extra emphasis from me. In the case of the Gen 0.5, it falls in the I really like it category, and it really does bring some unique and valuable offerings to the market. And that goes for playability as well as construction type and price. With the channel's discount code PBMED, you can take $20 off the price of the Gen 4.5, bringing it to $155. Not only is that just a good price for a good paddle, but that officially makes the Gen 4.5 the single cheapest all-foam core on the market, beating out other offerings from Honolulu Pickleball, Carbon, Blue Core, Diadem, whatever, you name it. There's a number of things that I think make the Gen 4.5 worthy of your consideration, and that all starts with the construction. If you ask anybody what the single biggest reason for paddles breaking is, anyone who knows what they're talking about is going to say core crushing. And that's the problem with Gen 2 thermoformed and Gen 3 paddles, is the honeycomb cores, they just don't last forever. And don't get me wrong, there's still Gen 2 and Gen 3 paddles that I think have stood the test of time and still have a great feel and play well, but when you add an all foam core into the construction of a paddle, it just takes that question mark away completely. This paddle was made with an expanded polypropylene foam core that you can see here, meaning that a mold was filled with these little beads, put in heat, and that foam expands to take the shape of the mold. You can see in x-rays here that around that core of foam is also an edge guard layer of foam here, and that extends around the entire face of the paddle and down through the handle for added strength. But that central core foam doesn't expand all the way down through the paddle. To save a little bit of weight, they did keep the honeycomb down in the handle of the paddle, and that's okay because you're not hitting balls there. That's just not an area that's going to core crush and that we're concerned about in that regard. One thing that's unique about the Gen 4.5 core compared to other foam cores is the use of their little hole punches, which start as, more circular shapes in the middle and get teardrop shaped more and more as you move out towards the edge of the paddle. I'll put their justification for the shape of the holes here on screen, and you can just pause and read it if you like, and I'm sure they're going to put it on the website, but suffice it to say they're trying to expand the sweet spot and give the face a particular feel. After having played with the paddle, I will say that I don't think the holes really do anything functionally at all, except for reduce the weight of the core, which is in and of itself valuable, so it's not like that's for nothing. Overall, the Gen 4.5 is in the elongated shape, and its standout feature, other than just being really well balanced, is its almost 6-inch long handle. The handle feels really solid, very well constructed, and I really don't know if it's just sheer luck or if it was deliberate or whatever, but the handle feels really nice, and the way that it meets the bottom of the face really creates an optimal grip for two hands. So all you tennis players out there, you're gonna like this handle. One nice thing about this paddle in its elongated shape is the fact that it's really not too heavy. The swing weight of the Gen 4.5 is comfortably below average for what most elongated paddles are, and for you perfectionists out there, around the edge guard of the paddle are little factory imprinted places where you can put lead tape and know that they're lined up equally on either side. In terms of overall power on drives, the measurements I got fall right in between the area of all chord and power. The effort to velocity ratio is pretty linear, meaning on smaller swings you get slower speeds, medium swings get medium velocity speeds, and bigger, more powerful swings get you access to that higher power. If you combine that very predictable velocity output to the effort that you put into it, with the fact that the pop here is maybe average to low end, you get a paddle that's very predictable, easy to control, and still gives you access to power when you want it. The face of the paddle is made with carbon fiber, and it is pretty textured. Not in a this is spray on grit that's gonna wear out kind of way, but more this is good material kind of way. It creates spin that's pretty good. It's not off the charts, but it's definitely well above average and on par with most good, well-constructed paddles these days. A big surprising thing for me on this paddle was its sweet spot and stability. For the first week or so when I played with this paddle, I didn't use any weight at all. I can almost never play with an elongated paddle without weight, but I really wasn't hurting for it in this paddle. It definitely doesn't compete with like a wide body foam paddle or like a Honolulu hybrid in terms of sweet spot and stability, but for an elongated paddle, it's pretty nice. One thing I've learned at this point playing with almost all foam paddles that are on the market is that all of them play significantly different and for the most part better with the addition of weight. This isn't really a high absorption, high dwell time type paddle. I wouldn't say it's stiff, but it's probably middle of the road. The addition of some perimeter weighting here, like in most foam paddles, gives it just a little bit more of a absorption, a little bit more of a almost bouncy type feel. I'm not talking catapult, it just absorbs the ball a little better. I ended up putting about 3 inches of 0.5 gram per inch tuning tape from Pickleball Effect down around the 4 and 8 positions, and then I put a couple inches up around the top edges as well. And even with those weight adjustments, I felt like the paddle was still pretty maneuverable and it wasn't too head heavy. In terms of overall play category, I put this paddle in the all court category, maybe all court leaning power. I think the power that I experience in gameplay is probably closest to the 11624 Power series, or maybe just under the Carbon True Foams. And though that might give it a good argument to be in the power category, I think its lower pop makes it settle down real nicely into that all-court area. A good all-court paddle can do it all. It can control well when you need it to, but when you turn it up, it can have good power. It's just not extreme on either end of the spectrum. And that's why I think so many players could probably benefit and play better with this paddle than a lot of other more powerful, more poppy paddles on the market right now. I really appreciate the fact that I can rely on this paddle to play consistently. Some other paddles I find myself thinking an overly high amount about executing the right shot or slowing down my speed or not being too stiff or the ball's gonna pop up, and then I just make other mistakes and I find myself falling behind. I just don't have to think with the Gen 4.5. As somebody who plays a little more stiffly and doesn't control high poppy paddles very well, I could maintain good dink rallies here and I could hit drops pretty consistently, which, if we're being honest, is what wins games. I think the shape of the face, the length of the handle, and just the overall feel of the paddle come together really well, and I just jive with this paddle. I do think I should be clear though, there are people who will not like this paddle. If you're looking for big power and you want the paddle to do all the work for you, this is probably not going to be it for you. Like I mentioned before, it has a very predictable and consistent response to the amount of effort that you put into it. It's not going to run away from you. But it also doesn't just launch the ball off the face either, so if you like paddles that you can just sort of stick out there and the ball bonks off the face just by pointing it with very little forward movement, like the 𝐲𝐿 Pro 4 or the Ripple or something, I find this responds a little better with some forward movement on resets and dinks and stuff like that. Overall, this paddle gets a pretty easy recommendation from me. It's affordable, it's got some presumed increased durability, and it plays pretty well. And there you have it, that's my take on Enhanced Pickleball's Gen 4.5. Hope the review was helpful. Like always, let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll catch you here for the next one.